March. So if you haven't listened to the whole entire,
you can say more words.
I'm just listening to you.
Stop that.
Yeah, I mean.
Words. Okay, so we are at the GG.
The same one where, but you know what? There's a.
A little light for creepiness, I guess you could. With my other co-host that I normally have on with me, we were talking.
There should be like.
I don't know, hold on.
We got the one does.
So you have something to actually hold it in.
Welcome to paranormalxl YouTube edition. I am your host. That was fun. So, welcome to paranormalxl podcast. Season 4 is where it's all at. We've went many different directions in the past, 3.5, 4 years now, and
Don't we always?
4, and I had to beam Mama Mary back in to bring us back for season 4 for aliens. Yay!
Oh, the ET.
Yay! So yeah, we are super excited about this episode. As you can tell, I'm super nervous. I say that almost every episode, but I am super nervous just because. So we'll just jump in. You got anything to say?
No, the guest we're doing today is like one of my favorite guys. He knows everything about ET that there is to know. So a wealth of knowledge, and if you're really interested, you can learn something new. Definitely.
I got my pen ready and everything. I can't wait to learn and notes. I'm all about learning and researching. It's so exciting. So some of you may know our guest. He is the director of Michigan M.U.F.O.N. Recently on Unsolved Mysteries on the Netflix, Alien Contact in 2020, Americans Alien Invasion, the Lost UFO Encounters in 2012, Abducted by Aliens UFO Encounters of the Fourth Kind in 2014, Peter Jennings, UFO Seeing is Believing in 2005, Abduction Diaries in 2002. He is also an author of some out-of-world books. Made that up myself. Pretty excited. So I'm pretty sure he is going to teach us a thing or 18, so I'm pretty excited about that. So, but let's hold on, because I made him an introduction video. That's how awesome this is going to be.
Out of the house yet.
There's still a lot of things going on. Parked in the car, waiting for another friend to get out for work.
We're back, so let's welcome
Bill Konkolesky.
Oh, I gotta push the button. Is Bill ready?
He is. This microphone.
Hi.
Oh my god.
Thank you.
Did you like the video?
Yeah, it was really something. And it was really odd. Right before it started, this helicopter started circling my house and it took off. I'm like, that never happens.
They're watching us now.
He's such
Right
a
on.
true.
Yeah, we've got Bill on. They're watching.
Sweet. So yeah, this is what's happening, Bill.
Oh, not much. Just a bunch of stuff. Sort of waiting for how that new UAP report is going to shake out. It just seems like if you're familiar, the government, it's time for them to put out their next UFO/UAP report.
Yeah.
And it appears to be that it's going to be pretty underwhelming, saying that a lot of mistaken sightings are drones, Chinese drones and other I don't know, things like space junk or whatever. And I don't doubt that people see things in the sky that they can't recognize that aren't extraterrestrial. I guess that's where we're going with them. But some things appear to be. So why spend your time talking about the things, even if it's the majority of things that can be identified? You want to talk about the stranger things out there.
Well, absolutely. So you are the director of Michigan M.U.F.O.N. So for our listeners and viewers that don't know exactly what that is, can you explain?
Sure. MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, is the world's largest UFO research organization. We've got 5,000 members in over 40 countries, and Michigan is one of the chapters of many for MUFON. We happen to be a chapter that gets a very large number of sightings for our sun. We're generally in the top 10 with number of UFO sightings. Up in categories like Texas and Florida and California, the big states, and so we get about 200 sighting reports annually here in Michigan, so 1 or 2 a week, and it keeps us quite busy. We have a team of investigators that look into these. Essentially, how it works is if somebody sees a UFO, they can report it to us. Usually, it's through our website, MUFON.com. And then a field investigator gets assigned to look into it, contacts the witness, and tries to figure out what it is. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's some of the good stuff. We can generally identify about, on a better year, between 80 to 95% of the cases that come into us. But still, if you get 200 sightings a year, 10 of them, that helicopter.
Come on, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take a look at this helicopter.
Okay, you go take a look.
That's great.
Drinking the wine.
Okay. Completing my thought. That's good. And so out of 200 sightings, if we identify 95%, that means there's 10 really good ones every year that we can't identify, just even in Michigan alone. And as the late Stanton Friedman, the great UFO investigator, used to say, it really just takes one sighting to be authentic, and then that proves and changes everything.
Oh, right, absolutely. I know we discussed not talking theories, but this just popped in my head because that's just who I am as a person. Now I think because you named like Florida, Texas, California, and us, the bodies of water. Do you think that has anything to do with?
It's certainly possible. There are many theories that say that the UFOs want water, need water, whether it's for some maintenance of their ship, like a fuel, whether they're just studying bodies of water to see what what's inside it, like the chemical level, or what the biological stuff that's in the water. I don't know. When somebody recently, it was a television production crew about 10 years ago. It was a very big year for us UFO-wise in Michigan. We actually had 412 sightings. It was 2012, so it was a big year. And the majority of that was Chinese lanterns or sky lanterns, those little plastic bags with the candle, and there you go. It looks like weird in the sky. So when a TV production crew came up and said, hey, we've got a theory that there's a UFO base under Lake Michigan. And I said, well, people don't really talk about that seriously. People speculate a number of things, including the fact that, there's some interest in the water. And I said, I'm not sure how far we'd be able to go with that. And he said, can you do this for me? And I remember the year was 2013 because it was after the year 2012 when we had all those sightings. He said, can you go back and look at last year and tell me how many sightings you had on or near Lake Michigan? And I said, sure. So I came back, that helicopter, I tell you. I'm sorry if that's bad interview etiquette, but this I am not used to a helicopter.
It's
going around.
exciting. I think it's exciting. They want you to know, tell us stories.
So I came back and I said, okay, we've got four UFO sightings on or near Lake Michigan last year. And he came back, he's like, oh my gosh, maybe there's a base under Lake Michigan. I said, well, let's put this in perspective. 4 is just under 1% of the sightings we got in the state. And on a body of water that, if you include the Upper Peninsula, and of course you do, it borders half the state. So I said, that's a very small number for such a big area. But they went with it anyway. And the TV show that they ultimately produced was really weighted heavily that they thought there was a base under Lake Michigan. Now, this isn't to take away from the March 8th, 1994 sighting, which includes, of course, Lake Michigan. There were over 300 witnesses on the west side of the state on March 8th, 94. Many calls into the police, many witnesses to not only glowing discs of a singular color, like a red disc flying around, a blue disc, things like that, but also very, very large discs of glowing with the glowing lights all the way around them. And the big sort of stars of that evening were the Graves family. It's a family of 4 that saw this giant UFO hovering just across the street. They called the police. The police sent over Officer Jeff Feldhaus, who also witnessed the UFO, as well as another one in the sky. And at the same time, they got in touch with the National Weather Service in Muskegon, and radar operator Jack Bashong. He also witnessed very large returns on his radar. And he said that, the National Weather Service radar isn't built to detect aircraft. It's built to detect weather. So if you have an aircraft that appear on the radar, it's a very large thing and, substantial.
Maybe it's not a helicopter at all.
So
I'm so sorry. What is going
Oh,
on?
I love this. This is great. It's we need this. This is helping my nerves.
we're being beamed in. So where do
Anyway,
you
so where the story is going? I should take this interview outside, and you could see it flying around in the background. But so anyway, at one point, Jack says that he witnessed the UFOs shoot out over Lake Michigan at a speed he said was at about 72,000 miles an hour, he estimates. And that when it went out into the lake, it was joined by, he said, potentially dozens of other craft that were hovering over the southern part of Lake Michigan in an area which happened to be the only part of the lake which was not yet frozen over, or pardon me, had thawed because it was going into spring. There was no frozen water. It was all just, open water where all these UFOs were hovering. That seemed to be the spot that they all were. Coincidence? I don't know, but that does definitely say that something was potentially interesting about that spot of the lake that drew all those craft. Why they would choose that as a reconnaissance point? Maybe it's because it is an overpopulated area, but I don't know.
It's interesting. That was discussed on the episode on Unsolved Mysteries, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was so good. I got sent that link. Somebody's like, you need to watch this. And I was watching and I seen your face on there. And I was like, I'm going to talk to that guy.
I know his face is all over the
I was like, husband, I'm going to talk to that guy. Didn't find it very entertaining.
No.
I did.
I
But
usually don't.
no, it was very interesting because it's neat to hear about those types of things that, are in your home state or near home and, Kalamazoo and stuff like that. We're not that far from there. So it's really neat to.
So like in Michigan, where do we get the most sightings?
So wherever you get the most sightings is always a population map. Wherever there's more people seeing things. There isn't any sort of outsized area that can't be pointed to as just saying, oh, there's more people that live there. So that's where we're getting more reports.
Also, we get UFO reports at a steady pace throughout the year. There isn't a time of the year that we get more sightings. Certainly there are these breakout events like March 8th, where you have a fairly steady number of sightings in the expected areas, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's this event. So these events do come along, but otherwise, things just tend to be everywhere all the time. And again, wherever there's more people see things.
Yep, more eyes. So let's say versus even 10 years ago. Now, has it made it more difficult, like when the research team and stuff goes out there because of the drones and the things that people have up there in the sky just because of technology itself? Like, was it Elon Musk that sent that thing out there? I don't ever talking about it.
I can't remember. I don't know.
It was like, oh my God, what is that? And they're like, it's that.
Oh, the Starlink satellites.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we a couple of years ago, 2020, big, everybody's at home, due to COVID, and 2021, we started to get all sorts of these sightings, and people were seeing, chains of balls of light shooting off into the sky. Because when they launch these satellites, they launch them in a string. And they are pretty mysterious looking. You can go onto YouTube or whatever and look up Starlink satellites and see what these look like. And we even had, and I think we still have at MUFON.com, this little video saying, if this is what you saw, this is what that was. To try to keep down the number of sightings. Because, much like Time Magazine called Elon Musk their Person of the Year recently. Yeah, he certainly earned our Person of the Year for all the fake UFO reports we were getting in, or identifiable UFO reports we were getting in. I swear this thing is circling my house.
Say they're after something.
It is so weird. This never happens. Huh. Oh well.
I guess all of a sudden, like if you disappear, we'll just be like, well, that's it.
We're all done.
Best interview ever. So, what are your personal experiences, Bill? That's what I've been itching to ask.
Sure. A lot of people think like, oh, you think Bill is just this normal guy, but he's got this kind of a weird side in that he investigates UFOs. And really, this is my normal side, the investigating UFOs. The weird side is that, ever since age 2, I've had very personal, direct encounters with very strange things. And my very first memory in life, age 2, is a little gray guy that came into my room, stared at me from the foot of my crib, and I screamed for my parents. My mother told me to go back to sleep, and the thing walked out of my room. I had experiences at age 4, 7, 9, 10, and many in my teens and early 20s. I document as much as I can in my books about that time of life. And it was quite a lot. So, I'm not just the MUFON president. I'm also a client, to take a line from the commercial. And, I always say that UFOs took an interest in me before I took an interest in them. And so trying to identify lights in the sky is actually on the normal tip of my experience on this UFO journey. I have a scar on my arm from age 7 from a procedure that I got done to me when I was brought on board. And I still have that scar. I've had several sightings of UFOs as well as up close personal encounters with these beings. So I come at this this topic from a different direction that some of my peers do, where they come at it where they say, I want to determine whether or not there's anything to this phenomenon. I want to see if there's anything here or not. And I come to this, the middle ground where they're at, trying to help people that have seen things that I know are affecting them.
Right.
And being able to say that, if you've never seen one for yourself, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I make the perfect skeptic because, I've never seen anything, so I can look at this very objectively. And I come at it from the other direction and say, since I have had these types of experiences, I can better determine which of these things is on the more authentic end and which of them are on the maybe identifiable.
Right. What do you think
Authentic.
your purpose is working with ET the way you do?
Had you asked me this maybe a month ago, I would say this, and it's still a valid answer, in that since I have the luxury to be able to talk about this, I feel sort of an obligation. Maybe that's a strong word to do so. It's a topic that's affected me very deeply, so it's something that I'm very invested in. And the fact that in my family, amongst my friends, at work, everywhere, I'm very open about my life with this. And a lot of people that have had this type of encounter or encounters like these aren't allowed in their lifetime. Something is blocking them from having these discussions, from talking about it openly. And I think because I can, I should, and I do enjoy doing that, and so I do it, and so it's good for that purpose. And if the question is like on a broader cosmic scale, is there something cosmically affecting me to do this?
Oh, I hear it now. It's getting closer, girl.
Good. Yes. What is up? Okay. I this is a first, not only in an interview, but just in general.
So they must be looking for something if they're going that long.
I do have a helicopter story that I could tell, but I don't generally tell it. But I'll tell it in a minute. And return to the question at hand here. So, back in the heyday of UFO books, when I started to explore what had happened to me, which started in the late '80s, I was picking up books by Bud Hopkins, Whitley Strieber, John Mack, David Jacobs, Ray Fowler, Turner, just a lot of the Jenny Randalls, this was a big heyday for UFO books. Books coming out telling the stories of people who had these encounters, as well as a lot of people's thoughts on the phenomena. And and so I had a deep interest in it because I was trying to make sense of the things that had already happened to me up until that point in life. I don't believe those books drove my level of experience, but it helped put the experiences that I'd had up until that point and ongoing into some sort of context. Now, during that same phase of the 80s and 90s, there's an author very, very familiar with, of course, and possibly you too as well, the Dolores Cannon, and she was putting out a large array of books on a variety of topics. She basically worked through hypnotic regression. So there was a lot of books on past life regression, what happens when we die, and then also people explaining things in their past life regression, things about the pyramids and et cetera, et cetera. And then she found herself with a particular subject who was given the pseudonym Phil in the book. And she explores his encounters. First of all, it started as past life regression, and then it suddenly shifted gears to where she was talking to some sort of a consciousness, like he was channeling some sort of cosmic consciousness. And they had multiple sessions regarding this. At the time that I was reading these books, Although I was aware of her as an author, and know that there wasn't any topic that she didn't really touch, I didn't really go for her books like Keepers of the Garden, Custodians, and then from what I understand, there's even more, something Legacy of the Stars.
Yes, Legacy of the Stars. That's all about the star seeds.
And Star Crash.
Yep, that's another ET one, but it talks about more of the seeding of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And Convoluted Universe. Yeah, she's the reason why I got into the past life regressions. And
As he's
doing
talking,
ET.
I'm like, is he talking about Mama Mary?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
oh,
no, I didn't write those books, but they are fascinating. They really are.
you should.
And so these books, even though I was, I was voraciously digesting every book on the subject I could find, I had passed over that. I had the misconception that the book, just looking at the title, meant that she was talking about the Garden of Eden. And I know she touched on some religious subjects. So I'm like, oh, okay. So she's talking about Garden. And I had no idea that what the book was really about. And so I very recently read it. When I say recently, I just finished it this morning. And it is a lot of really phenomenal food for thought. Sometimes in these books, I can't say she when it comes from Phil, the person she's regressing. There's a couple of things where I'm like, I don't know about that, but as an overall theme, as an idea, the theory that's put out in this book it connects like pretty much all the dots, and it's one of those books where you have to say, okay, at least if in somebody in my perspective that's had this lifetime of encounters, to say, okay, now let me look at everything in light of what this book says. Let me compare my reality with this theory and see how well it fits. And so I guess I'm going to be getting into that phase. And I already have Custodians, which I'm probably going to start any day, and take this journey of exploration of what this message is and how it ties into the question before about me talking about this. Is that I really get a feeling that somebody out there somewhere wants at least a percentage of people that can talk about this phenomenon. They want them talking about it. They want this in public discussion to a certain level. And so that it's we're not completely sucker punched when that UFO lands on the White House lawn or whatever and have nowhere.
Can't wait.
So I do think, and I do feel that there's beings, a consciousness, something out there that wants to keep our planet talking about the evident fact that we're not alone in the universe, and not to isolate ourselves and fixate on the mundane things that drive us, mostly fear-based, and to sort of open ourselves so that we can progress out there. And a lot of the cliche things that have been said about why they haven't come down, I tend to think are true. I tend to think we're quarantined. Just imagine if they let us out into the universe with advanced technology.
Look at us. Look at us as a human race. I can hold that in.
Yeah.
We are horrible. Like,
Majority of them are peacekeepers,
Mhm.
and we're just not ready to meet that light.
You just, all I need as evidence is the drive to work and the drive home. Just the ridiculous things that happen on the road. And I'm in a 35 mile per hour zone, and the amount of speeding and road rage, I'm like on suburban streets. I'm like, oh, I don't know, vent about it. Yeah. But I'm just saying, it's everywhere.
there is, I could just imagine what the road rage looks like in space.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, that's okay with that blah about we're in a storm area 51 and blah, blah, blah. I was like yelling at the TV and all the things on the Facebook. I'm like, what are people thinking? You think you can handle aliens? You'd freak out if you saw a Bigfoot. You'd freak. We see each other. We can't even accept each other. You think you storming there? I don't know what's there. I'm living my best life. It can stay there, whatever's there. But them thinking that they're ready to see an alien, oh, you can't even follow the rules.
Yeah,
you're trying to storm a place that you'll get shot. Like, I'm gonna go live in. Anyway,
So
it's fine.
What do you think your most impactful encounter has been for you?
That I could talk about. There are some things that I'm not yet ready to, but I often say I don't have short stories. I only have long stories.
That's why you wrote books, right?
Yeah. and to me, I would say that, and this is something. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. I'm going to go with this one today. When I was a teenager, when I was visited fairly regularly, I had actually turned my bedroom into an obstacle course just to prevent getting abducted. I had next to my the door into my bedroom, I had a dresser, and I would put a snare drum stick in there so that the door could only open so far. I would generally have either the TV or the radio on. I would have the light on. I would have a fan blowing on me so that if anything broke that air current, I would know somebody was in the room if I had my eyes closed. I always had my curtains closed and the shade drawn. I had junk just all over my floor all the time to create an obstacle course. Whenever I could, have the dog in there with me, I did. And it didn't work. Didn't work at all. I don't think it came close to having any effect. When I was little, up until maybe about age 10, they were playful with me. They seemed like friends. But as I got into puberty, things changed dramatically. And there was just a whole lot of taking me in the middle of the night and the experimentation that you hear about and really creepy stuff to try to live through and then try to go on living a normal life after this is happening to you. And the majority of people, are not sympathetic to such a thing like that because to them it doesn't even exist. So when I was brought aboard one of these times, I was 16 and I went, I was taken by a combination of the smaller gray beings that I would see that were about 3 feet tall, that had a big wraparound eyes, a 5-foot tall version, similar in appearance, slightly taller, and I could tell they weren't exactly the same type of being. Once I was brought before this mantis being. It was about 7 feet tall, and it had such a highly compressed energy to it. It was difficult to be around. It was just so powerful, the energy around this thing. It was pretty terrifying. It was pretty much a 7-foot tall praying mantis in a robe. It sounds absurd, and it is, and you could think of it that way until you see one in real life. And when I was brought before it, it said to me, "You are resisting now. And you shouldn't be resisting. You used to go with the program. Now you're resisting. Stick with the program and you will see its benefit. Stop resisting." And it terrified me. And I could tell, it felt like I was being brought to the principal's office, from my high school perspective. They're trying to scare me into going with the program. At least, I can't interpret it another way. And then let me back, home in my bed and everything, what I was left with was the fear of this, but not necessarily convinced that it had my best interest in mind. The way it was being conveyed was like, this is for my best interest. I should go along with it and enjoy its benefit. But I couldn't believe that at the time, and I didn't. And then as I got into my 20s, I started to have experiences with them that were on more mutual ground, they were more like respectful. They weren't as harsh. They weren't just grabbing me in the middle of the night. So the nature of the phenomena changed when I got into my early 20s. And as I've aged, I started to look back and say, that thing was probably right. That what they were doing was probably for the best good. But I think that they have a challenge with us in that them being beings of consciousness, they don't understand how much we cling to our physical form. For us, we're all about our bodies, and the ego is very much invested in our physical form. And to them, the body is a vehicle. And so when they take our vehicle to do tests on our vehicle, we take it as most invasive, a big affront to us and our physical form, which we take to be ourselves. And they can't understand why that's a problem. And so I don't see that they probably just didn't understand the issues that I was having with that as a teenager or as anybody would. And so I think that was why they felt they needed to have that message for me, even though it didn't quite stick at that time.
Have anybody to to talk to about all this, like when you were going through this as a young kid, as a teen in your 20s?
Yes. The phenomena runs through my mother's side of the family. And I have 4 older brothers, 3 still here on Earth. And my 2 oldest brothers have had immense lifetime full of experience. We're both together. And then the 2 next brothers, I'm the youngest of 5. The next 2 brothers, no experiences between them, 0. And then me, I pick right up and dial it up to 11 with the experiences again. So I don't know why it skipped the 2 middle brothers. And when the family would get together and talk about stuff, like, oh, how have you been? I'm like, oh yeah, I was taken. Like the 2 middle brothers would look at each other like, oh, But because of that, I had a sympathetic family. Yes. When I was little, my brothers were told specifically not to talk about their own experiences around me. And then when I got old enough, in like middle school, junior high age, whatever, and then they were opening up to me about their own weird encounters. And so I do have that as a support system. I didn't have friends that really had that kind of thing going on until I discovered M.U.F.O.N in 1993 and, came into a broader paranormal community. And, you have that persistent support that you're grateful for. But yeah, I was lucky enough that I had a family that was compassionate when I would talk about the things that happened to me.
So that would be such a struggle.
You feel like you're alone.
Yeah, you already do at that age. But then to have that happen, and you're like, what do you mean this is normal? And I have nobody I can talk to about it. Like, that's awesome that you had at least your family there.
And that's why I called my first book Raised in 2 Worlds, because I was a normal kid, had friends, paper route, played on the soccer team, all the normal stuff, dated, whatever. But, I had this other track going at the same time. And so, it was all about these 2 things happening at the same time and how you sort of manage that. And then when I got into my early 20s is when the beings, the consciousness, whatever you want to think of it, it really started to take a personal interest in my life, whom I was dating, where I was living, my friends. It just had a very
a keen interest in the direction my adult life would take.
Right.
And that's why I call it the two worlds collide. And it's not exciting, it's not when people start to talk about like, here, let me tell you about this 5 years of my life where the aliens seem to nudge me one way or another. It's not as sexy as the stories like, oh my gosh, this light came down and this thing and you know but really, I think the long game story is a lot more interesting than these one-off events.
Yeah.
The fact that there is somebody constantly watching your life, constantly having opinions on your life, and you have to wonder why that is. And and it's a much bigger phenomena than somebody just being taken once. Most of the people who are taken several times. I like to joke, call them frequent flyers. But it's true. Most people don't have just a single experience. They have a relationship with these beings, and it lasts a lifetime.
Now, since you got your brothers that have stories as well. Now, when you guys would talk about that or any of the other stories that people come with you with, are the beings, do they seem to look alike?
They tend to be the smaller grays and the taller grays, for the most part. I think that there is probably a tremendous variety visiting this earth. I have close friends that talk about beings that visit them that look nothing like the ones that I describe. And yeah, it's possible that they're being visited by those beings. It's just, the ones that I'm familiar with are the little ones, the little gray guys and the slightly taller gray guys.
Oh, okay.
If I can slip in that helicopter story before
I absolutely do.
So when it was my early 20s and I was still living at home. I was the only person at home at the time. Being the youngest, all my brothers had moved out, so it was just me and my folks at the time. My dad was job hunting, and he had an interview for a company. And they told him that they would call him on a particular day to tell him whether or not he got the job. And so he wanted somebody at home to take the call, should they call. And I was like, yeah, I got nothing going on. I'll be home, sure. And he goes off to work. And I'm sitting alone at home in the afternoon. It's like 2 in the afternoon. And I'm reading a UFO book. I remember it was David Jacobs. Which one was it? It was Before the Threat. I can't remember which one. Anyway, it was a David Jacobs book on abductions. And while I was sitting there reading the book, the phone rang. And okay, maybe it's this interview result that my dad wanted. So I go and I answer the phone, and it's my dad. And he's like, "Has anybody called for talk to say anything about the job?" And I said no. And then he goes, "Well, maybe your mother took the call or whatever." I'm like, "No, she's at work." I'm like, "I'm the only one here. It's just me." And then I realized when I said that for some reason I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that I was alone on the phone like that. I just felt that was a mistake somehow. And then he's like, "Okay, let me know if anyone else." I'm like, "Sure thing." So he hangs up. I go and sit down, and I pick up the book, and I'm like, I'm just feeling really weird now. And the phone rings again, and I go back and I pick it up, and this was old school. It was a landline, connected to the wall, hanging on the kitchen wall, whatever. So anyways, I go and I pick up the phone, and it's dead silent. Nobody's there. It's just quiet. And as I'm going to hang up the phone, I hear an approaching helicopter. As I do now. Anyway, so I hang up the phone, and this helicopter starts approaching. I could hear it, and it's getting louder and louder and louder. And then as it gets over the house, it is so loud the windows are shaking.
And the sort of precious moments figures that my mom had, some of them were toppling over. I mean, this thing was shaking the house. So I run outside, and yeah, there's this black Huey helicopter hanging really low over the house. The backwash of it, the downward of the rotors is moving the grass even slightly. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why is this helicopter hovering over my house? And then I look up at it, and then it slowly lifts up, and then it flies off. And so I'm like, okay, very strange, obviously. And so I call, I go and call Shirley Coyne, the state director from Michigan M.U.F.O.N. At the time. I was brand new M.U.F.O.N member, and I'm like, hey, Shirley, this helicopter just came over my house. What do you think? And she goes, oh, you need to call Air National Guard Base and file a complaint. And she goes, that's the only way they'll get the message to stop doing that. I'm like, you want me to call a military base and complain about a helicopter intrusion? And I'm in my early 20s, so technically an adult, but still kind of a kid,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And she's like, you got to. I'm like, all right. So I did. I called, got out the phone book, and called, and they and I said, yeah, there was a helicopter that came down to my house, and blah blah blah. And he's like, all right, we'll look into it, and we'll call you back within 15 minutes. So I hang up, and yeah, within 15 minutes he called and said, yes, there were several helicopters flying from some base in Illinois. And I forget his name, and he gave the name, but I forget it. And he said that they were in fact flying towards Selfridge, but they are not allowed, he said, to fly below 500 feet, and that one would stop and hover over your house. They can't figure it out, but they'll ask around about it or something like that. And that's the last I ever heard about that. But yeah, I mean, if somebody says, have you ever had a black helicopter experience? I've got, exactly one or two if you include the show. But.
That's true. That's true.
That is true.
That is crazy. Like, why they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is odd.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that don't make sense about it. Like how could it have been just there at the right moment? And to be so blatantly like, this is not an accident. We are right over your house. This is intentional. This is a show to you that something's going on. And then, it was right after I said I was alone and I felt weird about it. And, Selfridge acknowledged that it was one of theirs. So I don't know. One of those weird things.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm not going to go outside
for the rest of the day.
Now I'm scared. I wouldn't know what to do. These are great stories. I'm all like into them. I'm like, wait a minute. What is your most recent experience that you've had?
Okay, so here's where my life gets a little tricky. Now, when I say, as I did very recently in this interview, that since I can talk about it, I do. Since I have the support of my family and my friends and my coworkers, I do. However, many of my experiences now don't include just me. They include other people. And other people don't want me talking about their experiences. So anything that's happened to me recently, like over the past few years, anything that would make a good story involve somebody or somebody that I can't talk about. And I can't talk about the story without the other person and have the story make any sense either. But it seems to me that the nature of my encounters has gone from a very personal track to including many people around me. I hate to be coy about it. There could be a time where I'm more able to talk about it.
Right.
It's just not right now. It's just the nature of wanting to keep the people I know in my life out of the spotlight.
Well,
And,
absolutely. I
yeah.
respect that.
Why do you feel your experiences lately have been with more with people than just singular?
It depends on the person. I'll start by saying, because it's hard to say, because these are people that would have these type of encounters.
I just gotta
You
ask the
broke
questions.
him.
I know.
You broke Bill.
How best to put this? Having asked the question that way makes it seem like it's about me. Like, why do I now encounter multiple witness encounters? But these other people that are having encounters, I think that they're having encounters on their own, in their own right.
Mhm.
So it's not the fact that they are around me that they're having encounters so much as I just happen to be around people who choose to stay out of the spotlight and are now having encounters. And so, how to put that question in context for me, I think what I get out of it is that sort of support level of not being alone in this phenomena. It's one thing, to go through it on your own. Obviously, the worst way to go about this. It's one thing to have a supportive family like my older brothers and my mom and that sort of a thing. And it's another thing also to be in a community of fellow experiencers to talk about your encounters. But that top level is when you have experiences with other people, and that's what really makes things, even if you want to say, oh, maybe I'm just imagining this, even though you're not, when somebody else is involved, it just is undeniable. And I think that the type of thing I'm getting now is that it doesn't want me to have, the phenomena doesn't want me to have any vagary. It wants me to have certainty in my experiences. It doesn't want to be vague. It wants to be very clear. And that's why in one respect that something like that is happening. Now, just to touch on something that is only a UFO sighting, but I think conveys a point. When I was 18, me and two buddies, we were in his Chevette. It was 9 o'clock on a February night. So it was quite dark out. We were waiting for another friend to get home from work, parked out in front of our house. And while we were sitting in the car, this blue ball of light at about the height of two telephone poles, about the size of a car, this brilliant blue light flew very slowly over the car. And then a white ball of light then came and ping-ponged all over the sky very quickly, like lightning fast all over the sky. That disappeared, and then a red light appeared in the middle of the sky, grew to about the size of a full moon, which is very large, and then shrank, and then disappeared. And the three of us all saw it exactly the same way, all remember it exactly the same way. And in fact, I went to work the next day. Turned out another coworker had seen at least the blue ball of light. He told me his story before I told him mine. And so, I mean, that level of certainty, I think, is conveyed in a moment like that. Like, even if I wanted to say, oh, this never happened, or I imagined it wrong, or I must have been seeing things. No, not only did two other people with me see it the same way, but somebody else in my life the
Right.
next day also confirmed it. And so, yeah, I think maybe this current level of encounter I have with other people might be along the same lines. Like, stop doubting yourself. Stop second guessing this, because here's evidence that it's
Right.
real, because
They're giving you the validation right there with saying,
Yeah.
having these people take the same or getting the same experience as you during the same time and stuff. Huh. Interesting.
I think it could be like a leveling up of the work that you're supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Darkly profound. I see the look on your
I
face.
feel really smart right now.
Oh,
I'm just so intrigued
it is
with
an intriguing
everything.
subject. It really is.
'Cause it just never ends. 'Cause I've had my one and only ever experience, and I don't think I've ever told anybody about this ever. So you're welcome. I was probably 6 or 7 when we lived in Martin, Michigan. And I was in bed, but my bed was right next to my window. And I woke up. It was like 2:30 in the morning. I had no business being up. But I sat like right up in bed, looked out my window, and it was like just a bright light, but it was like the shape of a cigar. But I remember like the feeling. I remembered everything about that. And then just like I just laid back down and just like woke up. But I remember, silly story, I know, but like I seen it, sat up like I was supposed to see it, laid back down, fell right back asleep, but remembered everything from that however long I sat up and stared at it. You know, that I don't remember my dreams. I don't remember getting up and go to the restroom or anything, you know, it's that little. So I don't know. That's my story of something in the sky that I didn't know what it was. It was a long time ago. That would have been 38 years ago. No, 32 years ago.
Yeah, see, I don't have any of those kind of stories. I've channeled ET where there's actual communication and I could see them, but where I saw anything in the sky, nothing like that. Just more visions and channeling.
Even back then, that's when I like jumping into the paranormal part of things or ghost part of things. I started having happenings of like my bed shaking and things hitting me in the head when I was little. And I'm like,
there's a lot of correlation between ET abductions and paranormal experiences.
But I never wanted to really cross the two like that because I don't want to know the truth because I'm a weenie. And I get scared. So, yeah, I mean, that's my story. Not nearly as cool as all yours.
She's
though, Bill.
sticking to it.
Yeah, when you talk about like is the paranormal broader paranormal phenomena and UFOs, is it the same? Are they connected? Yeah, I do think that you know, first of all, absolutely, but there comes a challenge when you try to talk about, say, the UFO phenomena. You know, it's very easy to say alien, but we don't know if they're just time travelers or, you know, from another dimension, not another planet or whatever. You just sort of need a common term to have a discussion. Otherwise, you can't even talk about it. Now, like shadow people is something that's reported as aliens. It's reported as ghosts. You know, some even say, you know, like like demon or something like that for the shadow person. And you know, what exactly are these shadow people? You know, are they ghosts? Are they aliens or whatever? And then you say, okay, so this entity came into my house, and then, but now you don't. Now things are really blurred. Are we talking about ghost or ET stuff? Then you don't know. But then if you don't put it into some kind of context, you can't really discuss it. And it almost becomes a trap. There's so little we know about everything that's happening to us, you know, from like the Bigfoot experience, poltergeist, you know, ghosts, UFOs, all this stuff. That, yeah, we either have to use inadequate language to clumsily stumble through conversation about it to acknowledge it's happening, or just if you want to find the perfect language for it, I don't think that's possible to us right now. And then you can't talk about it at all.
Just do a lot of this. That's what I do. Mix it together. I usually know what I'm trying to say, and I don't even get the folds out. I'm like, ooh. No, it is very, yeah, because you end up falling down like this deep rabbit hole if you start going, are they aliens, ghost aliens? What are the, you know, the shadow people, the orbs that people see? Are demons alien? Go into this whole thing.
You can go down a rabbit hole with it. You really can.
I don't want to have energy for that. I know that. So, is there anything else that you would like to?
No, I think that's it.
That's it.
Bill,
That's your roll.
Yep.
Just kidding.
No, Bill's a knowledgeable guy, and
yeah,
he's talking about.
I've enjoyed this immensely. Now I'm gonna have to go buy all those books. I'm gonna be busy the rest of the week. Jeez. would you like to? Is there any like email or anything if somebody wanted to contact you about MUFON or even just talking to you or anything like that? Are you interested in giving up?
Sure. Yeah, I'm an easy target. So I'm on Facebook. Feel free to friend me, of course. If you see a UFO, please report it to MUFON at MUFON.com. If you want to become a UFO investigator, you can find out how to do that at MUFON.com. If you want to participate in our state meetings, we just had a really great one with the radar operator, Jack Bushong. Our next meeting is January 15th, where Sev Talk, who is a experiencer and also a member of North Carolina MUFON, Sev Talk, will be our guest. And you could go to MIMUFON.org, MI for Michigan, MUFON, MIMUFON.org, to find out more there. And my contact information is at both websites. I do have a personal website as well, but I don't update it quite a bit. I don't think anybody really knows it's out there, even though I talk about it. It's experiencer.me. And then you could go there too to find out a little bit about my personal stuff.
Sweet. Well, yeah, you sound like a busy guy. It'd be hard to keep up on that too.
Yeah.
It was great having you on the show, and thank you so much.
Oh, yeah,
excited.
thank you. And thanks for the air support too. Whoever was
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So thank you so much for joining us on this amazing episode. Mama, would you like to add anything to the end of the episode for our listeners? You know, it's been a while since they've heard from you.
I know, right? No, just thanks a lot, Bill. It's always fun talking to you. It's great to be back on the show, even if it's temporarily. Having fun, right? Drinking some wine.
So that's what we do.
So what's our final outcall that we... I forgot. What is it?
Are you serious?
Just
It's
kidding.
on
No, I
everything.
haven't.
Was it follow us on something? Get out. Remember to follow us on social media. Just search paranormalxl. Send in your paranormal stories or episode ideas to paranormalxl@writeme.com. That's her favorite. Stay kind, stay humble, and remember, don't yuck somebody's yum.
Ever.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, wrong button.
March. So if you haven't listened to
You can say more words.
I'm just listening to you.
Stop that.
Yeah, I mean,
Words. Okay, so we are at the GG.
The same one where, you know, but you know what? There's a
A little light for creepiness, I guess you could. With my other co-host that I normally have on with me, we were talking.
It actually be like,
I don't know, hold on.
we got the one does.
So you have something to actually hold it in.
Welcome to paranormalxl YouTube edition. I'm your host,